I knew that if I gave her a spare moment that she'd turn it into a decree pattern. But then we do get a tremendous amount of help out of the decrees. I hope you're enjoying the downpouring of snow. I saw one head going this way and some are going this way.
It's beautiful snow out here.
It's beautiful. It's nice and warm in here. And it's a real pleasant winter season here in the Rockies. But I think most of you will be amazed to know that up until the class started, we have had temperatures ranging from 50 to 60 degrees almost every day and no snow on the ground or no rain. And it's been almost like parts of Northern California. It's been just wonderful here. It's true. But of course, so many of the incoming people said that they wouldn't feel quite happy in coming to Colorado without snow, especially at this time of the year. We have a very interesting subject today. It is the subject of the Mahatma letters. What is a Mahatma? At the risk of your thinking I'm a bit funny, which you may think anyway, I want to say that in the Sanskrit the word Maha means great, and the word Atma means soul. Therefore, a Mahatma is a great-souled one. You may be interested to know that the word atomizer is derived in part from the Sanskrit Atma. At least I think it is. I feel it's a derivative there because it illustrates the breaking up of particles of one size into smaller particles. And we do this in an atomizer with air. We take perfume and we squeeze air in and it breaks up the perfume into droplets. In one sense of the word, one of the great masters once said that man is actually a living soul, that God is a great soul, the great ocean of soul, that the individual soul is one drop of water taken from the ocean. In this case, the drop is unseparated, but always remains a part of the ocean. And in a real sense, we're talking about the ocean of consciousness. So the Atma is the soul, the particle of God that's broken up. Well, how do you go about getting a Mahatma? You go about getting a Mahatma because that Mahatma, that is just a particle of God's soul, begins to draw, as I explained yesterday in the chart of the present lecture, begins to draw more and more of the divine radiance around himself and accumulates virtue on an individual basis, which is explained by Jesus' statement, "Greater things shall ye do because I go unto my Father." You see, there is a difference between the Godhead and the manifestation of God. The manifestation of God, by being given the gift of free will, is able to function with that free will and draw to himself virtue in excess of ordinary virtue that ordinary men would have. And this virtue can become greater and greater and greater. And it has nothing to do with ego, because it's a divine work. And so the soul can expand in its consciousness, and one soul can be greater than another, or one star can differ from another star in glory, and this explains why some masters have a stronger radiation than others. Or, let's qualify that, a stronger love radiation. than another master, or a stronger wisdom radiation, or a stronger power radiation. Do you see? This does not mean that the master is deficient in grace, because in a real sense, Adolf Hitler had a soul too. And we could suppose that his soul would be as good as anyone else's soul. But his conduct was not. And we must therefore make a distinction between the deeds and the doer. The doer, of course, is any of us. The deeds are what we do and we elect to do. The Mahatmas, then, have fallen under this category of greater things shall ye do because I go unto my Father. They have not only utilized to a larger degree the opportunities that life has presented to them, but they have also captured the momentum of the other masters and have utilized their momentum, of those who have gone before, that is, to add to their own. Now, the interesting observation I would like to make here is that what man has done, man can do. Any one of us, then, can utilize the momentum of other masters who have gone on before. In fact, I would like to point out a very, very important concept to you. Each one of you in this room and each person on earth, if they fulfill their responsibility correctly, must enrich in the Godhead when they pass from the screen of life. Whether you ascend back to God or whether you pass through the change called death, you should carry with you a momentum of service that will make the Godhead just a little bit more. As Khalil Gibran said of God, of the Holy Spirit, of life, he said, it is a flame spirit gathering more of itself. And if you think about that, you will realize that we are fulfilling a cosmic responsibility by becoming aware of the need to do greater things than we have done in the past. But let it not be a function of the ego. Let it not be done to exploit our fellow men, to enter into a spirit of vain competition between peoples. Let it be done solely and purely for the love of God and the love of man made in his image. If we do this, then we can truly enrich in the Godhead, because our offering becomes acceptable to God. An impure offering, motivated by the desire to appear wise before men, would in no way be acceptable to God. But if we serve with a humble and joyous heart, we may be certain that the Father welcomes our service, for so do the angels in heaven function. I have in my hand the book called the Mahatma Letters. This is a Theosophical Society book, and it deals with certain letters that were precipitated in the air by the masters and were dropped out of the air and delivered to Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. The principals in the drama of the Mahatma Letters were the Ascended Master Moria L. and the Ascended Master Kuthumi, known to others as Kuthumi. Both of these men were fellows at Oxford at one time or another. The illustrious Master El Morya, of course, was Melchior, one of the three wise men that came out of the Chaldean hills at the birth of Jesus. Master El Morya was known in later times as Sir Thomas More, Chancellor of the Exchequer under King Henry VIII. He lost his head because he would not consent in good conscience to the marriage of Henry VIII to Anne Boleyn, I believe. Wasn't that correct? Some interesting observations on that one were the words of Sir Thomas More, who without fear mounted the scaffold to lose his head, and turning to the headsman said, "Do your job well, for you send me to God." On another moment, in the final moments of his life, he said to the headsman, "Would you mind moving aside my beard, because I do not think it has offended the king." Before they led him out to the scaffold, his wife and his daughters were weeping in the cell, and he grabbed a flask of his human urine, held it up to the sunlight. The sun came through, it was a golden amber color. He smiled at them and he said, "Methinks this is the specimen of a healthy man, who will live if the king wills it." So we have here a man with great sense of humor, great courage, and a magnificent fortitude. The story of his life is well worth reading. He wrote Utopia. Later on, after his ascension, when he ascended as Prince Mori Wong of Kokonor, the beloved El Moria then met with Madame Helena Blavatsky in his tent in India. And I was trying to recreate in my mind, and I'll have it here in a minute. Oh yes. It was in the time of Queen Victoria that Prince Mori Wong rode in the Indian Horse Brigade before Victoria on a white charger. At that time, Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky was Helena Hahn. She was a little girl of 4, and she went to see this, and she was watching the horses riding along, and her little soul was thrilled. Master Mori was astride this horse. He saw her in the audience. His eyes pierced her. But she forgot the entire incident till she went to India and met with him in the tent. When he said, "Let me create a scene for you," he said, there was a little girl of 4 in the crowd, and the Indian Horse Brigade was riding, and there was one tall bearded Sikh riding a white charger in the front, and his eyes suddenly swept the audience and met the 4-year-old child. She says, "Who was that?" He said, "It was you." She said, "It was you, Master Moria?" "Yes." And so gruff old Master Moria, as he came to be known as, met with her there and recreated this scene and showed her that the masters have their eyes on people from the time they are children, and perhaps even not only in one embodiment but through many embodiments, and that there is a tie, and that the skeins of destiny often link people together in a most remarkable way. I have a particular reason then for bringing the Mahatma letters to your attention today. And one of the reasons is because of some of the thoughts of the blessed Christian Scientists. And by the way, I'm not talking about the Christian Science Church. I'm talking about some of the false concepts that people have about negativity and positivity. And this will apply also to some of the blessed unity people. We have many unity people in our work, and they love it. We love them, and we love the scientists. My own wife was a scientist. But it is important that I warn you then about one of the most clever strategies of darkness, which will come forth in fuller detail by far in my forthcoming book. After we finish this one, we're going to start on the second book, which is called Strategies of Darkness. So I want to illustrate to you the fact that one of the most effective tools the dark forces have in dividing people is on points of doctrine. There are many people then who are convinced that no one should ever think, feel, say, or do an evil thing. And I quite agree with the idea. From a practical standpoint, however, people still make mistakes. Now, I want to point that out. And we are concerned with a cause and effect relationship. I have pointed this out in the past by saying that a man is driving a car down a road. And as he drives it down the road, ahead of him, about 100 yards away, there is a large gray rock that has tumbled down the mountainside. You've seen these signs, you know, where it says, warning, watch out for slide area, be careful. Now this man is a positive thinker. He doesn't believe that a rock can tumble down in his path. So as he sees this rock ahead on the road, he says, no, he says it isn't there. So, in the old words, you know, of that automobile club, the American Automobile Society, AAA, he was right, dead right, as he sped along. But he's just as dead as if he'd been wrong. So the people just go right on toward this rock because you see it isn't there, till they crash right into it. We have to be positive thinkers, and that poor little negative rock doesn't exist. My contention is, and the masters agree with this, and I really learned it from them, that when that rock is there, that rock of negativity, our role is to see it, recognize that it is not truth, that it is not God, that it is not the kingdom of heaven, that it shouldn't be there, but it is, and therefore steer around it. Avoid it. Now, if you're going to be so completely and absolutely positive as a positive thinker that you say that if you have a sore throat, I don't have a sore throat, it doesn't exist, and therefore I refuse to take any precautions about it whatsoever, it can get worse, right? And as Estella Lindsay told me recently about the Negro practitioner in Christian Science that was so effective, this woman, of course, used the power of positive thinking by saying, whenever people called her up for a treatment, the only thing she said was, it ain't. And she healed people of everything from cancer to TB to heart trouble and everything just by saying, it ain't. So there's a great deal of power and much to be said in favor of positive talking and positive thinking. But our contention in the Summit Lighthouse is that there is a time and a place for all things. The Bible says there is a time to be born. There is a time to die. There's a time to plant. There's a time to harvest. You see? And there is a time to use nothing but positive thinking. But there is a time when you should have awareness of what is going on in the negative world only with a view to counteracting that which is going on and bringing forth the great power of the positive thought that you wish to introduce. The Mahatmas then were very wise men, but they were living and working with Madame Blavatsky at a time in our history when, of course, Madame Blavatsky and Annie Besant and many of the early Colonel Olcott and some of the Theosophical Society figures were trying to break through the stone wall that surrounded people in the transition from orthodoxy, absolute orthodoxy of the Middle Ages almost, of the Dark Ages, I should say, to try to bring forth a glimmer of light that was the introduction of the masters of the Far East to America and England and to the world and to India. Naturally, they had a lot of problems. Now, the reason I wanted to lecture on the Mahatma letters then is because today, in the latter times, the Battle of Armageddon is not only looming, it is with us. And at this time of the Battle of Armageddon, it is absolutely necessary that the students sometimes see these rocks in the middle of the road, and when they see them, know that the masters did not put them there. That they should also understand that it is not necessarily true that their karma put the rock there. We're living in a big world, and in this world, where time and space play such an important part, we are dealing with interlocking karma, which means that if you are a saintly person and your karma is absolutely that you should be delivered from all evil, and you are living in a community that is near a volcano, or you have built your house on a riverbank near a levee. If something happens that causes an overflow of this water, there is a rise in the water, or there is a disturbing condition that causes the volcano to erupt, your proximity to danger, regardless of your karma, can produce some harm, even though you may have no particular specific karma that would actually deserve your destruction. But you may have your home destroyed, or your automobile, or you could even have a member of your family injured, simply because you are living on the banks of the river. You have chosen to live there. And there is a responsibility that is given to all of us to take reasonable and prudent care concerning our karmic situations. And we ought not to lambaste the deity because we sometimes have problems when common sense would already have shown to us that there would be a very definite possibility of danger in whatever undertaking we might be involved in. It has been said, "Thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God." And as I remember the scriptures, when the serpent came to Jesus and said, "Why don't you cast yourself down from this mountain if you're the Son of God? For after all it's written, He will give His angels charge over thee, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone." It is a most beautiful idea because it clearly illustrates what I'm trying to tell you. Jesus did not accept the temptation of the dark forces. He recognized the responsibility he had for governing his life. And he knew that although it was true that if he were cast down from the mountain, that the angels would have charge over him, he also knew that this could come about if through no fault of his own, when he had taken all reasonable precaution, he accidentally tumbled down the mountain, he probably would land in a bush or something, or a haystack, or something would come up that would save him. But he did not tempt God, and we also ourselves should not. Therefore, because we are living today in a very dangerous time, and because at the time the Theosophical Society brought forth their teachings, they were living in a dangerous time, when humanity was inclined to lampoon them, to poke fun at their teachings, in general to destroy, if they could, the Master's teachings, there naturally was introduced a great deal of dissension into the society. And you cannot expect today that an organization that is avant-garde, like the Summit Lighthouse, is going to fail to have attacks by people who are ignorant of what the truth is. People from time to time will decide on the basis of their emotions that a person is either good or bad, that an activity is either good or bad. Very few people are able to see what I will call the gray tones in life. We deal almost entirely in blacks and whites. We have a need, a compulsion, almost a mania, to render judgment on almost everything, whether or not we know something about it. And a little knowledge becomes, of all things, the most dangerous, because the little knowledge enables us to say, well, I have been there, and I have heard this man, or I have heard this woman speak, and I either like it or I don't. Now you should realize, as I have learned to realize, that many people whom I have heard speak, on one particular occasion, did not impress me particularly, or maybe they impressed me tremendously, either way. And maybe the next time I heard them, they either impressed me very badly, where at first they impressed me very favorably, or the first time I heard them I was unimpressed, and the second time I was shocked, and I realized the virtue and value of what they had to present. Now this is not something I'm talking about for us. I'm talking about any speaker, anywhere, you see. So then, we should understand that there was a reason why the Mahatma letters were written. We should also understand that we are living in a time of conflict, where from time to time the masters have to clarify certain points in order to bring mankind out of the pitfalls and dangers that otherwise would befall them. I would like to draw a few pertinent examples. Several years ago, when Summit Lighthouse first started, what many of you did not know is that I was the messenger then of the Summit Lighthouse, that Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky embodied at that time in a body of a woman in Philadelphia, who, by the way, if you saw her picture, looks exactly like Madame Blavatsky, and she was Blavatsky. She was the first editor that the Summit Lighthouse ever had. She was employed by, not Elizabeth wasn't with me, but she was employed by me and by the board of directors to edit the material, that is, put the punctuation in. I would take the dictation and put it on the tape, and she would put the punctuation in, and then we would print it. And she had an agreement with me, and I had an agreement with her, that we would agree to accept her editing, and she would agree to accept our dictations from the masters. Well, this woman, within a very short time, decided that she didn't like everything that I was giving her. For example, one night in Washington, D.C. at sunset, I was kneeling in my sanctuary facing the setting sun, when suddenly the window was obscured, and there was no window there. In its place there was nothing but blazing light, and in the middle of that light stood the Archangel Gabriel. And I was almost like the keepers at the gate of the tomb of Jesus. I almost fell flat on my face. This was not an arc light. It was not the sun. It was no ordinary phenomena, although it came at sunset when the sun was coming in. It was not an hallucination. It was a definite factor, because my whole body was absolutely charged with light. And it almost raised me off the floor. I was just like a balloon. I was so light. And then Gabriel began to speak out of this light. And I got a pencil and I wrote a few things that he said down. And they were all simple, like a child would speak. He just said, "I am Gabriel." Unfortunately, people, when they read words, many times do not realize the power with which they are spoken. So when my little message for a pearl of wisdom arrived in Philadelphia for editing, it appeared to be very simple. She called me up and said she couldn't use it. And I said, "Why not?" She said, "It's too childlike, too simple, too ordinary, too repetitive, too everything, too negative." I said, "Don't you feel the radiation of the Archangel in it?" And she screamed back over the telephone to me and she said, "My God," she says, "it's filled with radiation, but I can't print radiation." She says, "I can't print radiation. I've got to give the people words." So she said, "I'm going to make up my own dictation and I'll print it, and that'll be a pearl." Well, I argued with her to no avail, and so we had to print it by agreement. And the real dictation never got printed that week. And as the months passed by, she took increasing liberty with the dictations. This was in the year 1959. And when November rolled around, Master Moria wrote a beautiful letter, one of the most magnificent letters you've ever read in your life, in which he fired her. And in that letter he said, after handing her a lot of compliments, he said, "This woman, like Vesuvius, has continued to erupt through the years." She read that letter to her students assembled in Philadelphia. Bless her heart. And they were a little stirred, and she said, "Can you imagine an ascended being making a statement like that about me?" The reason I'm telling you this is because many people imagine the masters to be sweet, sophisticated little Jesuses with long, curly hair, marcelled and parted in the middle, and with a sweet, angelic face, perhaps with blue eyes, and almost Maybelline on the eyelashes, you know, curled up. You think I'm kidding? People think that Jesus is like that? Jesus, he sweat, and his robes got dirty, and he got tired when he went a long way on foot, and he curled up in the head of the boat and went to sleep because he was tired, and tired of the vibrations of people who wearied him. And he felt the need to withdraw from the tiring, wearying world and commune with God. I want to point that out to you because Jesus was a strong, powerful man. He could run the gamut of human emotions. He could be so soft, so sweet. He could say, "Consider the lilies of the field, how they toil not, neither do they spin. Yet I say unto you that Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these." Or he could suddenly turn and say, "You generation of vipers, you are of your father the devil. He was a murderer from the beginning." Now why am I doing this? To show you that there are two sides to the ascended masters, because the masters are dealing with that D blank rock. It's in the middle of the road. It's true. The rock is there. And you know what the rock is? It's human stubbornness. It's human pride. It's human insolence. It's human imagination. It's human stupidity and ignorance. It's human sophistication and wisdom, the wisdom of this world that is foolishness with God. It's all of these things and many more. And as a result of this human activity, churches have been torn in half and divided. Martin Luther tacked his manifesto on the door of the Catholic Church, and of course justifiably against the indulgences and the immorality and all the things that took place. But again and again, the fragments of the Christianity that Jesus taught have been broken and broken and pummeled and broken apart until what we see in the present day is nothing more than a mechanistic presentation of orthodox concepts so removed from the reality of Jesus Christ and the power that God originally put into man that we cannot even today hold together the remnants of civilization with it. Do you see? You can't hold society together. And the young people today don't even believe it because they see through the awful charades in which civilization has been engaged, including men of the cloth. And the same thing took place in the time of the founding of the Theosophical Society. Therefore, Master Moria had to get out his own letter in which he had to reveal what this woman had done and fire her. Let's consider the alternatives. If the Master had said nothing, the woman herself said plenty. She was on the platform giving a running account of my life as she knew it in Philadelphia. She serialized it like The Secret Storm or Dark Shadows. And Mary Spellshouse, I don't know if she's here or not, is she around? Yes. Mary, you were present when she was serializing my life story. Do you remember it? Yeah. And this is what happened. In Philadelphia, there she was bringing forth point by point my life story, and the whole purpose of that was that she was going to dump me and have her own activity. Well, Master Moria said to me, "I knew what was coming when you first got together," and he said, "I felt that I would make it like a Hershey bar so that I could easily break it in two without too much ado," which he did. I want you to know this because I want to show you that one of the greatest strategies of the powers of darkness is to impugn the nature of God-loving people who happen to defend their own position when they are under the most scurrilous attack without any fault of their own. The rock has come down the mountain. It lands on the path of life, and that rock is there. And they are telling people there the rock is, and I'm going to go around that rock. And the people say, you shouldn't say that. That's negative. Don't say things like that. Always speak positively. Speak well of everybody. Did Jesus speak well of everybody? Let me tell you something. There is no more despicable thing in this universe than condemnation, criticism, judgment, and gossip. This, I assure you, is true. But at the same time, Jesus said, "By their fruits you shall know them, and the truth shall make you free." Therefore, the truth is not gossip. It all depends on the motive. The motive is behind it. When you tell something, someone comes to you and they say, "What do you think of this?" If you tell them something against a person because you want to destroy that person, you hate them, you're jealous of them, that is a sinful activity of gossip, criticism, condemnation, and judgment. But if, out of the love of your heart, you speak honestly and sincerely, and you say, "Well, here's the facts, but let's not worry too much about it because God will take care of them." If you answer honestly, that is not gossip, unless you make it gossip. And therefore I present some of the Mahatma letters to you because I want you to see what the Master said, and I assure you that when you hear these, you will know that it's the Masters talking. But I want you to know also that the Masters don't always talk like that song goes, "Sweet little Jesus," or "Jesu, joy of man's desiring," and all these things. Sometimes they are hard-boiled and tough because we are so waterlogged with emotion in our world as human beings. We are so hidebound by convention. We are so determined that we are right in our smug little attitudes of self-conceit that many times it takes dynamite to dislodge us. You see that. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of power in order to finally wake us up and realize what the truth is. I learned last night of a man who claims to be a man of God, who claims to be a real wonderful master, a living master in the flesh, who was engaged in an immoral act with a woman in a certain part of this country, an absolutely filthy, immoral act. Yet that same man came out, and from the platform all over America, he blasted and lambasted American people and American women, and he said of these American people, these American women, he said, "Why don't you follow Christ?" Yet he himself was and is an immoral, filthy-minded person who stands up on the platform and dares to come out and condemn others. Now, do you understand me? Well, do you think that life will forever let him hide behind the veil of his popery? It's not the Pope. No, I wasn't talking about the Pope. But I mean the popery of his own self-righteousness. I tell you no. For it shall be shouted from the housetops what he has done in secret. But I do not wish to be a party of it. I wish to have no part in it whatsoever. So I want to read you some of the Mahatma letters. Here's letter number 30. Private. My dear brother, perhaps a week ago I would have hardly failed to embrace this available opportunity and say that your letter concerning Mr. Fern is as complete a misrepresentation of the spirit, and above all of the attitude of Moria toward the said young gentleman, as your complete ignorance of the aim he is pursuing could produce. And I would have said no more. But now things have changed, and though you have come to know that we did not really possess the power of reading minds, as had been pretended, nevertheless we know enough of the spirit in which my last letters were received, and of the dissatisfaction produced, to suspect, if not to know, that unwelcome as truth may often come, yet the time has arrived for me to speak frankly and openly with you. Lying is a refuge to the weak, and we are sufficiently strong, even with all the shortcomings you are pleased to discover in us, to dread truth very little, nor are we likely to lie, only because it is to our interest to appear wise concerning matters of which we are ignorant. Thus, perchance, it might have been more prudent to remark that you knew that we did not really possess the power of reading minds, unless we brought ourselves through thoroughly in rapport with and concentrated an undivided attention on the person whose thoughts we wanted to know, since that would be an undeniable fact, instead of a gratuitous assumption, as it is now stands in your letter. However it may be, I now find but 2 ways before us, with not the smallest path for compromise. Now, I'm going to cut part of this out. My dearest brother, you are egregiously mistaken from first to last. Your whole letter is based upon misconception and entire ignorance of missing links, which alone may have given you a true key to the whole situation. What can you mean by the following? My dear master, amongst you, you are utterly spoiling Fern. It is 1,000 pities, for he is really a good fellow at heart, and he has an intense desire for occult knowledge, and strong will, and a great capacity for self-mortification. He would, I am sure, be useful for your purposes. But his self-conceit is growing intolerable, and he is becoming a confirmed fabricator of fiction, and this is due to you all. He has thoroughly humbugged Moria from the first, and he has gone persistently lying to Sinnett to keep up the delusion. He has got Moria to entrust him with secrets and to accept him as a Chela, and he now thinks himself a match for anyone. Moria replies, quite falling into the trap, this fraud no doubt commenced in your interest, and so forth and so forth and so forth. It is unnecessary for me to repeat once more what I have said before, namely, that up to receiving your first letter concerning Mr. Fern, I had never given him 1 moment's attention. Who then amongst us spoils that young gentleman? Is it Moria? Well, it is easy to see that you know still less of him than he knows in your conceptions of what you have in your mind. He has thoroughly humbugged Moria, has he? I am sorry to be obliged to confess that in accordance with your Western code, it would look rather the reverse, that it was my beloved brother who humbugged Mr. Fern, had not the ill-sounding term another meaning with us as also another name. The latter, of course, may appear to you still more revolting, since even Mr. Sinnett, who is but the echo in that of every English society man, regards it as thoroughly revolting to the feelings of the average Englishman. That other name is probation, something every Chela, who does not want to remain simply ornamental, has, nolens volens, to undergo for a more or less prolonged period, something that for this very reason, that is undoubtedly based upon what you Westerners would ever view as a system of humbug or deception, that I, who knew European ideas better than Moria, have always refused to accept or even to regard any of you two as Chelas. Thus, what you have now mistaken for humbug as coming from Mr. Fern, you would have charged Moria with it, had you only known a little more than you do of our policy, whereas the truth is that one is utterly irresponsible for much he is now doing, and that the other is carrying out that of which he has honestly warned Mr. Fern beforehand, that which if you have read, as you say, the correspondence, you must have learned from H.P.B.'s letter to Fern from Madras, that in her jealousy for Moria's favors, she wrote to him to Simla, hoping she would thereby frighten him off. Does that sound particularly spiritual? But it is a letter. And you know who wrote it?
Katumi. Katumi.
Right. He ended the letter saying, meanwhile I must close, reiterating to you once more the assurance of my sincere regards and esteem, yours, Katumi. Believe me, you are too severe upon and unjust to Fern. Now, I'm going to read another one of Katumi's letters. Received in London, March 26, 1881. This is from Katumi also. It is from the depths of an unknown valley, amid the steep crags and glaciers of Terek Mere, a vale never trodden by European foot, that since the day its parent mount was itself breathed out from within our Mother Earth's bosom, that your friend sends you these lines. For it is there K.H. received your affectionate homages, and there he intends passing his summer vacations. A letter from the abodes of eternal snow and purity sent to and received at the abodes of vice. Queer, n'est-ce pas? Would, or rather could I be with you at those abodes? No, but I was at several different times elsewhere, though neither in astral nor in any other tangible form, but simply in thought. Does that satisfy you? Well, well, you know the limitations I am subjected to in your case, and you must have patience. Now remember, folks, that these letters were precipitated in the air, in red and blue pencil, and they were dropped right out of the air and were seen by many people. In fact, they're still in the museum in London, these Mahatma letters. I guess this one, yes. Here is the way some of them look. This is one from Moria. Can you see that? Yeah, he wrote rather big. And here's Kudhumi. Part of it is that sometimes it came in Sanskrit and sometimes in English. Those are the signatures. Kudhumi Lal Singh. So he goes on, he says, I do not complain, but the very fact of your addressing me as master in your letters makes me the laughing stock of all our chatuttus. Wow. Who know anything of our mutual relations. I would never have mentioned this fact, but that I am in a position to demonstrate to you by enclosing here a letter from Subba Rao to myself, full of excuses, and another to HPV is full of sincere truths. Since they are both Chichilas, or rather disciples, I hope I am not committing an indiscretion in the Western sense. You will please return to me both after reading them and noting what they say. This is sent to you in strict confidence and only for your personal instruction. You will perceive therein how much you English have to undo in India before you can hope to do anything good in the country. Meanwhile, I must close reiterating to you once more the assurance of my sincere regards and esteem. Yours, K.H. Believe me, you are too severe upon and unjust to Fern. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what I did? I'm very sorry. I got the wrong part there. No. It was easy to do because I got carried away with showing you those illustrations.